California loves its classic cars. We're also at the forefront of the electric vehicle revolution. Put those two things together and you have a new trend of retrofitting cars from bygone eras with electricity-powered motors. Here to tell us about this vintage futuristic trend is Maverick Knowles, president and co-founder of Legacy EV. Welcome, Maverick.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is a fun one for us to talk about. So tell us more about this new trend emerging in Hollywood with classic electric vehicles.
Yeah, well, we were approached last year by a studio that was excited about their project that had a lot of 1920s era cars, but the actors were having a difficult time getting them started. And even just operating them. And they wanted something that was a little bit simpler. And so they had this crazy idea to convert them to EV, and they found Legacy, and that's what we specialize in. So they gave us a call and they wanted 8 kits right away to start working on this project and asked if it was possible. And we said, yeah, definitely. We've got authorized installers all around the globe that are trained to work on these systems. So we supplied them the parts and they converted these vehicles, and they still look like the classic car that they are, but they're way easier to operate and they're more sustainable.
Oh, that is so cool. And what kind of cars are you converting to EV? I know you mentioned the 1920s era. And how much does it generally cost to do this?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can pretty much convert anything to EV these days. The most common cars we're seeing converted are classic cars that have that nostalgia factor. Because converting a car, typically the lowest cost kit is around 15,000 and can work its way up to $120,000 really quickly, depending on how much power and range you want in that car. So it's typically done on the classic cars that kind of have that nostalgic factor. But we've converted cars as new as 2019 as well.
Wow, this is exciting. So is this a trend where more classic cars will be converted into electric vehicles for movies and television, since that's what you were approached by originally?
Yeah, absolutely. I foresee a huge trend in Hollywood with this because there's so much they're so much easier to operate and to have on set when they're electric. You're less worried about scheduled maintenance on these vehicles, and it makes the noise pollution way less on set. And so I think this is going to be a big trend in Hollywood for
And,
sure.
and you said it's easier to operate, but is making that conversion easier or is that difficult?
You know, it's got a steep learning curve to it for sure. The powertrain's completely different than what most technicians understand with a gas powertrain. And so that's why our company, Legacy EV, is really focused on education as well. We've got training programs that walk these installers through how to do these installs so they really understand the product well. But at its heart, an EV powertrain is actually quite a bit simpler than an ICE powertrain. It's more efficient and it's got less moving parts.
Okay, all good things to know. And how did you get started with Legacy EV? And how did this idea come about?
Yeah, well, I'm one of the co-founders, and Rob Ward, our CEO, approached me back in 2019 with the idea to start this EV aftermarket company that was in the supplying of parts for these EV conversions and EV builds. And my background's actually in education. I
Mm.
started out in Teach for America back in the day. And so I saw right away when we started in this industry an opportunity to also provide education to these shops that are trying to get involved in this space. The transition to EV is great, but it's a pretty drastic shift for a lot of auto techs around the country. And so we wanted to make sure that whether you're a small business, a custom hot rod shop, or a classic car restorer, you've got the opportunity to take advantage of this transition and get the training and access to the parts that you need.
Yeah, and when we're seeing these classic cars being converted into EVs, I'm just thinking of 1920s cars. I mean, when you start that engine, you hear it roar. Now that they're being converted, is it more silent?
It's definitely more silent, but the more you work around EVs, the more you realize there is a really cool sound to it. There's this hum that has this really fun performance feel to it, but they're definitely quieter on set. So if you're trying to reduce noise pollution, it's a great way to go.
Yeah, sounds good. A classic car is being transformed into EVs, making its way to Hollywood. Thank you so much for joining us today, Maverick.
Of course. Thank you.
You bet. To find out more, you can go to legacyev.com.